Saturdays have always been my favorite day of the week, because that's when my big brother Trevor is home from school. We get to spend the whole day playing games and watching cartoons. The weather was really nice that Saturday, so I was excited to play a game of catch. I didn't even have to say anything, just stared at him intently while holding the ball, and sure enough, he got the hint. I was so excited. We headed outside. It's a pretty quiet neighborhood, but the street is a little on the busy side. There's even a traffic light at the far end. That didn't bother us any. We knew to stay on the sidewalk or in the yards of friends. We didn't usually go all the way to the light though, since after it was businesses. Really, they started just right before, but the big old building on the right was abandoned. They say that big old hospital is haunted, Trevor said as we went, looking at the big sandstone brick building with its looming owl gargoyles. Haunted? I whined at him, not liking the sound of that, not one bit. What, you scared of a few measly old ghosts? Trevor laughed, resting a hand on my shoulders and leaning down to look me in the eyes. You're the one brave enough to chase after stuff that goes in the street, even when cars are coming. I guess he had a point there. Still, I snorted at him and continued on. Though I wasn't entirely sure he wanted to go to that old rundown building, at this point I had to prove I wasn't afraid. Trevor laughed, skipping along beside me. The building had a large lot beside it, or rather, considering its orientation of the main doors, it was behind it. But this area was open to our street, so whatever. It was on the corner, so the main doors faced the busier road, hence the traffic light. Anyway, the back of the building, which, confusing enough to me, didn't face the alley, had an odd covered platform jutting off of it, but that was apparently where they unloaded the ambulances. Beside that, against the building, was a stairway running down. That must have flooded in the recent rain and last snow, since it smelled of stagnant water and rotting trash. I ain't scared of no old building, Trevor stated defiantly, looking at it with a big grin. Me either, I agreed, and Trevor laughed at me, holding up our ball. Come on, this open space ought to be a park. It's open and awesome. With that, he threw the ball. I haven't gotten the hang of throwing a ball, not even now, so I just always brought it back to him. He didn't seem to mind, though, a loving big brother who just wanted to play. And play we did, for a few hours, ignoring the weird noises from the building and the taunting of teenagers as they drove by, too chicken to actually set foot near the place. Then, though, came the moment that Trevor threw the ball a little too hard and it went in one of the windows. Now, this window was towards the back of the parking lot, and not easy to see from the street, and with the trees along the alley, it couldn't be seen from there either. It was already open, and there was a battered-looking patio chair sitting under it, as if someone had been using it to boost themselves high enough to get in that way. I, seeing this, wasted no time in running that way, launching myself off the ground, using the chair as a springboard, hooking the windowsill, and hurling myself inside. Not a second thought, though I heard the chair crack when I hit it and crumble to the ground after. Oh my gosh! What are you doing? Get out of there right now! Trevor cried, suddenly in a panic, and I gave him a look to show that it was unnecessary, before moving on to examine the room, and find our ball. However, he kept calling my name and saying I was bad for going in this place, which bothered me a little, but I would be coming right back out, no big deal. The room was small and clearly once a bathroom. There was evidence of homeless hanging out and vandals tearing things up, as most of the fixtures were smashed. Interestingly, though, they'd been pink. This place had to be really old. A good look around proved that the ball wasn't in this room. The door was open though, so it had probably bounced and rolled. Carefree and ignoring the smells of an abandoned hospital, the smells of mold, mildew, and dirt, I headed into the next room to look around. This room was more empty, but it felt kinda like someone was watching me. I didn't see or hear anything, but if there were homeless hiding here, they were probably hiding pretty well. I was really intimidating for a 5-year-old after all. With a small huff, I moved out the next door and into the hallway, looking for the ball still, though unless someone moved it, I wasn't sure how it could have gotten this far. I could see the big hall that ran from the back door all the way to the front, stairs and other halls linking up to it. I could just barely hear Trevor still calling my name. He sounded like he was getting pretty upset, so I figured I should probably hurry before he decided to get our parents. It was darker in here, though, harder to see, and the shadows felt deeper than they should. It felt like there should be people there. I kept glancing one way or another, expecting to see a nurse or a patient, but there was never anything there. I shook that off and went further into the building. Still, no ball. At this point, I was getting kind of weirded out. I knew I should have found it by now, so I turned tail and headed back towards the door to the room I'd originally come through, only to freeze when I heard a new sound. The sound of a bouncing ball on a hardwood floor. It was coming from the stairs. "So there is someone here!" I exclaimed. I'd had a feeling all along and felt a little relieved that it had to be a person and not a phantom. I mean, ghosts can't move stuff, right? Right? Yeah. Up the stairs I went, following the sound as far as my legs would carry me. But up there I found myself in another empty hall, void of people, only chipping paint and carpets so worn and ruined they barely covered anything. Now I wasn't even sure where to look, so I just wandered around, listening and ignoring that strange feeling of being watched. The light was fading outside. Had I really been in here so long? My stomach growled, and I couldn't hear Trevor anymore, so he'd probably gone home to tattle. The last thing I wanted was to be in more trouble, let alone stuck in this place after dark, so I headed back down the stairs, abandoning my toy. Mom could get a new one. I headed back down the hall I'd come from, but the door was closed. I stared at it in shocked silence for a long moment before moving to try and open it, but the knob wouldn't budge. I banged on it and started shouting, and then crying. Trevor couldn't hear me. I knew he'd gone home, and no one else goes near this place. I thought about my parents, what they must be thinking. Surely they'd come get me, or maybe they'd decide I was bad, like Trevor warned me. Would they? No, they wouldn't leave me here, surely. "Aw, you look sad. You want to come and play?" I heard a little girl ask, and turned around so sharply I almost fell over. She was standing by the nurse's station, in a faded pink dress, her hair tied back and her eyes oddly dark. She didn't seem like she wanted to hurt me, though. "Are you stuck in here too? Do you know a way out?" "I want to go home. I'm hungry," I told her, but she tilted her head as if she didn't understand. "Aw, it's okay, big fella. No need to be afraid. Let's go play." Reluctantly, I followed her, but it was comforting not to be alone. I asked her a lot of questions, but she answered not a one, only assuring me that there was no reason to be afraid. I decided to just trust her on that, even though things got more and more eerie as it got dark. She didn't seem to care about it, and it wasn't too horribly dark around her, but the rest of the old building fell into a pitch darkness. I stuck close to her that night. When I eventually fell asleep on some smelly old cushions, I had dreams about my family searching for me, and me trying to reach them, but they couldn't come into the building, and I couldn't get out. I was really hungry by the time I woke up, thirsty and scared too, but my friend was still there, and she said we could play some more, so we did. She ignored all my questions. I asked about food, and there wasn't anything edible in the building. She warned me to stay away from the top floor and the basement, which I had no trouble doing. I kept sitting in the big hallway, though, watching all the doors, waiting. The next time I fell asleep, I dreamed my family had replaced me with someone new. They weren't coming for me. I was really hungry, thirsty, sad, and scared. Despite all her attempts, the girl couldn't talk me into playing. I was too tired. I kept telling her I needed food. Even my voice sounded weak now, though, dry and scratchy. That day was hot, too, with no air conditioning, no proper airflow. The building was getting pretty hot, and I was already really thirsty. It hurt. Things started getting muggy at that point, muddled and unclear. I curled up in a corner that was somewhat cool and took a nap. Somewhere along the way, all the pain stopped and I felt much better, but I still couldn't leave. I had no idea how much time had passed, but me and my new friend still spend all our time together. She found my balls, so we can play all the time. I miss Trevor, Mom, Dad, and food, but they abandoned me here. I guess her parents did the same to her, so we're each other's family now. Trevor, now 17, was walking down the street with his girlfriend, but he hesitated, glancing at the old hospital. The trees around it had been cut down recently, removing some of the spook factor, but that didn't make him feel any better. "You think it's actually haunted?" his girlfriend asked. "Probably. When I was a kid, I had this awesome black lab, but one day I was a dumb idiot and brought him down to this parking lot to play. Tossed the ball into the window on accident. He went after it and never came back. Freakiest part, though, sometimes when I walk by, I swear I hear him barking inside. The first few times I tried calling him out, leading him to the window, but after a week, my mom insisted I was probably just hearing echoes of other dogs bouncing off the building. I don't believe that for a minute, but the barking has never changed," he sighed. "So, you think your pup starved to death or something?" "Yeah, but nothing to be done now. That was 10 years ago." Thank you for listening. Have a spooky day, and remember, always respect the dead, even the canine variety.